Hello, everyone, and welcome to Matchbook Flashback. I'm your host, Alec Ogg, and I wanted to thank all of you who have listened to the first 2 episodes, and especially those of you who were kind enough to leave a 5-star rating for the show. We're a new show, so that 5 stars goes a long way to supporting us. But for the newcomers, I bought this big glass jar of matches at an estate sale, and the strangest thing happens. When I light a match, I can see a story unfolding inside the flame, like a memory that's trapped in there. And when I light it, it's like it gets released. Since you're here with me, I'd love to show you so you can see for yourself. Let me grab one. You know what? I'm gonna do two matchbooks today. Ooh, the first one. Oh, look at this. This is a brown matchbook, and it's for the Tiger Mountain Country Store in Issaquah, Washington. It says 1988. Issaquah, that's up near Seattle. Let me get a match here. All right, when I light this match, I need you to look deep into the flame. I need you to look deeply into the flame. Deeply into the flame.
I was a junior in high school, and my friend and I had just gotten off the phone with another friend. We were trying to meet up, and foreshadowing, we said, okay, we're going to go to the Tiger Mountain Country Store. Make sure to hit us along the way. And that was our exact wording, which was a little strange. It was like a wooded side street. I was wearing white pants. I was wearing Keds. My pants were rolled up at the ankles because that's how we did. So I'd say that was probably 89, 88 maybe. And I was wearing a navy blue striped shirt from the Gap. I think it was in May. So it was probably a gray, dreary Pacific Northwest day on a little wooded side street, residential, but no sidewalks. Yeah, we're just walking to the store, trying to get away from the family for a second. Anyway, so we're halfway there. We see my friend coming down the road, and he's driving his red VW Rabbit. And my friend and I decide to jump in the middle of the street because we're just messing around, and we're just like, stop, waving our arms. And he, of course, is in turn messing around with us and presses the gas so it revs up and comes careening towards us. And he's kind of hunched over the steering wheel, snarling at us and pretending he's going to hit us. Well, at that point, unfortunately, my friend and I decided to both run away in different directions. So my friend who was driving, Greg, had to make a choice of which one to drive his car into, and that happened to be me. So from the outside perspective, I jumped up, he hit me, he was going about 30 plus miles an hour. I rolled over his car and flew into a ditch. Then that's when the story kind of separates a little bit, because that's what my friends saw, that's what the neighbors saw. But my perspective was when I realized that he was coming in my direction, everything completely slowed down. It felt like everything took about a half hour. It was completely silent, with exception of the constant, text that we have going through our brains. So that seemed normal, that I heard, myself talking to myself, because I hear that all the time anyway. So yeah, it was probably be like likened to like when you put your noise canceling headphones in. Like you kind of feel like you're in a jar, maybe was the sound that I heard, or the lack of sound. The only thing I heard was my friend gasp. And then and I don't know in relative time when she did that, but that was the only sound I heard. I did not hear tires screeching. I did not hear anyone talking, nothing. I saw him coming at me very slowly. I had time to say, okay, you're going to have to jump out of the way. And then I was able to count down in my mind when I was going to jump as I saw him coming towards me. And I saw his bumper, and I was like, all right, ready, set, jump now. And then I jumped, and it gave me a little bit of air. I rolled over his car. I do remember that point. And then I was in the ditch, but it was the perspective of you're in a B movie and you're being chased by something, and you see the camera just having all these leaves and stuff hit the camera. That was my perspective as I was flying through the ditch. And then I stopped, and then things went blank for a second. And then all of a sudden I came to. I thought I was opening my eyes, but I wasn't. I was looking down on myself from an elevated situation, kind of floating above my body. And I saw my body was slumped face down in a ditch. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that looks horrible. Like, what is going on?
When you realized you were floating above your body, did that spiritual body, for lack of a better word, did that have arms and legs, the floating part?
It did have arms, because I remember kind of having my hand on my face, or like on my chin, kind of like quizzically looking down, like, is that me? And like, oof, you look awful. Like I was being critical. Like I looked like I was being critical of myself. And it was definitely me that was floating above. But it was light. Like I was kind of backlit to light. And I guess at that point I could see both me above me and me down below. And maybe it was kind of like a wide angle shot kind of the both of us. And I tried to look a little closer. I was like, wait, that's me. Like, this is weird. I'm like, get up. And my friend was like trying to shake me and like kind of pick me up a little. And I just remember telling myself, you look awful. You look dead. Get up. I felt like I was trying to shake myself awake. Like, I feel like I was the one in charge of me getting up. And that's when I started hearing again. And then I came to, and my friend was standing over me with tears streaming down her face. And that's when I was able to get up. And it was like being shaken awake, kind of. Like I remember like kind of gasping and like starting up. And I just kind of shot straight up and was ready to go. And I got up on my feet. And I remember telling my friend, I'm like, that was the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me. I'm like, she was like, oh my God, I thought you were dead. And I was like, no, I saw you. Like, I was watching you. And I kept trying to tell her, like, I knew where Greg was without knowing that he drove off. I saw him drive off. And I saw my friend run across the street. Like, I was telling her immediately, like, I was watching you. I know exactly what you did. You know, it was weird. There was a neighbor who watched this all happen. That was the funniest part. Because he got up and he's like, someone needs to go get that guy in that car. And I was like, well, don't worry about that. That was a friend of mine. He was like, I was like, he'll be back. And he goes, oh, really? Well, my friends don't run me over. And I was like, okay. And he goes, if he had hit my dog, I would have been pissed. And I'm like covered in dirt. There's gravel in my teeth. I'm like, oh, sorry that you'd be mad if your dog got run over. Like he didn't seem to care that I was run over. We walked back to my house and had to tell my mom that I was dumb enough to jump in front of a moving car. Then we went back to my house and my mom was cooking dinner. And she was, stirring pot for dinner. And I was like, okay, Mom, don't be upset. And she's like, that doesn't sound good. And she turns around and sees me all covered in dirt and everything. And I was like, I think I need to go to the doctor. And she's like, oh my God, what happened? And basically the only thing that happened out of the whole thing was that I broke my thumb, but it was at the mid joint. It was kind of turned at a 90-degree angle, and the tip of the thumb was swinging at the bottom. It was pretty banged up. And I was like, we got to go to the doctor. She saw my thumb. She freaks out. Went upstairs, and I'm still adrenaline moving. And I was getting changed out of my clothes and into cleaner clothes without holes in them to go to the doctor. And that's when it actually started hurting. Anyway, so then we went to the doctor and had to tell the doctor a story that I jumped in front of a car. He thought I was an idiot. He said that guy was going way faster than he should have been going. This is pretty bad. And I said, yeah, he was driving. I was like, he's probably going about 35, 40 miles an hour. And the doctor's like, if you hadn't jumped, you would have been smashed all over the road. He's like, he would have hit you right in your midsection with the bumper and you would have been done. So yeah, that couple seconds that I had in my mind to tell myself to jump saved my life.
What do you make of all of this, Nikki?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like, I wasn't raised religious at all. And I'm a science person. So I always feel like this story makes me sound crazy. But if I go to science or spirituality, I think that, maybe you have maybe there's a gray area between living and dying, and that you have choices to make when you're in that gray area. Maybe, I don't know. It's weird. It definitely made me more spiritual because I feel like there's something else kind of out there beyond, it wasn't my time. And I was given a second chance kind of thing, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. But like I said, it's not something I inherently believed in the afterlife. But this definitely made me think more that there's room for souls, maybe, if that's the most familiar way of putting it. And the collision, I think, kind of hit that spirit outside of, if you put it in cartoon perspectives, that's the only way I could really describe it, was that the impact hit this spirit out of me and I was able to function outside of my body for a hot second,
Yeah.
I think it's just kind of weird. I don't know how else to explain it without sounding crazy.
I know this happened when you were only 17, but did it change your life or your perspective in any way?
Well, like I said, I think it gave me my own sense of spirituality. I know that when my father was passing, I think I felt more connected to him, having gone through something like that, knowing that he was present than I felt like he probably looked. But that's about it. I mean, I didn't change my life in any way. It was an interesting story that I had, and I didn't really share it with a lot of other people because it's strange. But yeah, I feel more connected to those that are about to die, I guess. Just that I know that they can see things, that they are present, even if they don't look like they are.
Well, as you can see, the match has gone out. But as the smoke clears, kind of smells like Douglas fir trees in here. Gotta love the Pacific Northwest. And I hope you loved that out-of-body experience that we just saw inside that match. And you're in luck today because I grabbed 2 matchbooks out of the jar. So we are on to our second matchbook of the episode. And this one, I gotta tell you, this is the newest looking matchbook we've done so far on the show. This one is clearly just printed in 2023. and it is blue. It's bright blue. It's like sky blue, and it says St. Joseph Mercy Hospital on one side, and on the other it says Ypsilanti, Michigan. And yeah, what do you say we dive right into this one? Now, when I light this match, as always, I need you to look deeply into it, okay? Because that's where the story is. So when I light this, look deeply into the flame. I need you to look deeply into the flame. Look deeply into the
Well, I went in for a routine hiatal hernia surgery. And 2 days before I went in, I found out that I have something called mastocytosis. I possibly have something called mastocytosis, which is bad for your tissues, soft tissues. And so they pumped me full of steroids before the surgery. But I think what happened is that when they went in, everything looked fine. But then, like 3 days later, I was standing in the kitchen, and all of a sudden, my head started moving around, and I couldn't straighten up. And Tad was going to take me to the hospital, and we were out in the yard, and I just fell over. I collapsed. I couldn't walk. I was having problems breathing. And what happened was the tissue probably tore because it was soft at one of the stitches, and I had septic shock. And I couldn't get up. And so he called the ambulance. The last thing I remember was laying on the ground in front of the house with the ambulance turning the corner. I was still conscious of what was going on a little bit. In fact, I joked with the ambulance driver that said, if I come into the hospital for an ambulance, does that mean that I get first dibs on entry? I do not recall when I lost consciousness. And as soon as they got me into the hospital, the surgeon that had performed the original surgery came in, and they went in, and I actually was dead on the table for a little under a minute. I had stopped breathing. I had a breathing tube. They had me strapped down because they didn't want me to hurt myself, because I kept moving around. And then I was in a coma for about 2 weeks, off and on. The first part of it was a coma that my body did, and then the last part was a coma that they induced. So I was in a coma for about 2 weeks. The biggest thing that I remember is a grinding noise. It's like, or brakes without shoes, that kind of noise, like metal on metal. And it would go off, and then it'd stop for a while, and then it'd go off, and then it'd stop for a while. That was the most disturbing during the coma. The other thing is that my whole life flashed into my head. I went over everything I think that I ever did in my life in my head.
How did that appear to you? Was it like you were seeing images of it?
It was like a movie clip. Some of it was in black and white, and some of it was in color, depending on how old it was.
Did it seem like it was fully unbroken, like it went from present rewinding into past, or did it start in the past and it was just scenes? What was the sequence like?
No, it didn't have a sequence. It just started doing it and it'd break off onto something else, and then it would go back to the beginning again, and there wasn't a loop to it or anything. It just kept going. Once in a while it would repeat itself, but it kept going on for the whole time, I think. And then interspersed in there were visits from people who I knew who had died. I had a visit from my mother. I had a visit from my sister. I had a visit from my brother. I had a visit from my first husband. And, they didn't say anything, but I could just see them in front of me, watching.
Did they appear as when they passed away, or did they look sort of idealized versions of themselves at a younger age?
No, they appeared as last time I saw them.
And you said they just seemed to be observing you?
Right. They weren't really talking to me. They were just watching.
And they were watching you watch these video clips of your life, sort of?
No, they were just coming and going. I actually was dead on the table for a little under a minute. I had stopped breathing. That may have been the grinding noise. I don't know.
The moment you might have coded might have been the grinding noise?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And did it feel like that grinding noise, where did it sound like it was coming from? Was it just everywhere?
Yeah. It was just everywhere. It was in my head, but everywhere around me.
And if you were to interpret that grinding noise, did it sound like you were tearing out of your body, or did it sound like it was in this physical world and you were just kind of hearing something?
No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I could describe it. We looked at all of the equipment that was in the room, and none of the equipment sounded like that unless there was something in the operating room that made that same sound. But it came over a period of time, a couple of, maybe 2-3 times during the coma. So.
And did you feel like there was a sense of time you had while you were in there?
No, I didn't know time at all. I woke up and I didn't know what had happened, and I didn't know how long I was out. They told me I was in the coma for 2 weeks, and I said, "Oh, okay," and woke up and started my road to recovery.
When your life was appearing before you, did it seem like you were present, sort of watching these things go by?
Yeah. Like I said, it was like movie clips.
And were they in front of you or all around you?
They were inside, just inside my head.
Okay.
I can't say that they were in front and back and side, whatever. They just felt inside my head.
Okay, but you weren't reliving them necessarily. You were seeing them.
No, I wasn't reliving them. I wasn't in there with them. I was just seeing them over, happening again.
Do you recall any of the moments you saw?
I recalled silly things like hiding a textbook that I had spilled ink on from my parents. I got into some trouble with the nuns because I ruined a textbook. So,
yeah, where did you hide the textbook?
In the crawl space under the house. And my dad was doing some work under the house, and he found it.
And you had spilled ink all over it?
Yeah, I'd spilled ink on a bunch of pages.
And so, how old do you think you were when that happened?
Oh, I was probably in the first or second grade.
And was there anything earlier than first grade?
No, I can't think of anything else unless the grinding noise was the ship that I came over on.
Oh, interesting. How old were you when you came over from Poland?
I was 1 year old.
That's an interesting thing to consider.
Yeah, I just thought of that. I don't know.
Yeah, that's really interesting. What other moments from your life did you recall?
I recalled the day that my first husband died. I recalled some of the friendships that I'd made throughout my life. You know, and I can't recall which ones were repeated. I just know that a few of them had been repeated.
Did it seem like there might have been an emphasis on happy moments, or no?
There was an emphasis on mostly on bad times. There were a few good times, but mostly they were bad instances in my life.
Has it ever popped up in your head that there was anything significant about it, or there was some kind of message in those scenes that you were supposed to think about, or no?
I think I was supposed to just remember those who went before me. Like my sister, she had triple bypass surgery, and she pretty much had the same kind of history of rehab and everything that I'm going through. And if I had known of all the issues that she was going through, I would have been more helpful towards her. And my brother is an interesting story because I went to a psychic once, and he told me that he saw someone with a long mustache, a young man with a cane. And I thought, oh, it has to be my grandfather. So I didn't think anything of it. Well, my brother was in a car accident and hurt his leg really bad, and eventually was walking around with the cane and had a mustache. And I completely forgot. And I think that if I had remembered, I could have been more in tune to that. Maybe the psychic said he's either passed or he's going to pass. And this was before he had his accident, like 5 years before he had his accident. So I think that's who he saw. So when I saw him in my mind, that's how I pictured him, and I remembered the story with the psychic.
If you're willing to talk about it, what was the day that your first husband died? What was that scene?
He died in a car accident, and he was coming back from town. We lived out in the country, and he was coming back from town, and a tire blew out, and he hit a tree and was killed in the accident.
And were you in the car as well?
No, I was at home.
And so when you were seeing this clip play back, did you see the crash, or were you seeing your day as you got the news and all of that?
No, I just saw, well, I remembered some dreams that I had. Just before the accident, I had a dream where I was looking out a window and he was walking in a field, and a bunch of horses came up to him and started eating him. And I did a dream class once, and that a long time ago, and that was supposedly horses eating flesh is like related to death in some way. So maybe a premonition of some kind.
Yeah, that's a frightening image.
Yep. I also remembered another story where right after I went to, I was depressed. So I made an appointment for a psychiatrist, and I had a dream the night before I went. I had a dream that I was walking around in a pharmacy, and my arm went up in the air, and I couldn't bring it down. And this man turned the corner, and he asked me what was wrong, and I said, I can't bring my arm down. And he said, okay, I'll help you. And he pulled on it, and it came down, and that was the dream. So the next day, I met the psychiatrist, and he came in wearing a sling on his arm. And we talked for a while. And I said, I had a dream. I think I had a dream about you. And he said, why? And I said, I told him my dream, and he said, well, that's what happened to me. My arm went up in the air and it wouldn't come down. He'd been skiing.
And so have you been remembering these dreams just now as we're talking, or these sort of were dreams you remembered while you were in your coma?
I remembered them in my coma too. And I mean, they come back to me every once in a while, but I had them in my coma. Yeah.
It's almost like some of these dreams have been moments of premonition or something like that. Do you feel like they were?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I used to be, when I was younger, I used to have premonitions. I think one time we were driving down the road and somebody passed us, and I'm looking at the car and I'm thinking, guy's going kind of fast. He could have an accident real quick. And about 5 miles up the road, there he was in a tree line. But that's kind of normal sort of stuff. People, he's going fast. You think he's going to wreck, but little things happen.
Yeah, and do you feel like you had a sensitivity to that as a kid that maybe was suppressed or faded?
I think it faded. Yeah, I think it faded. I think when I was younger, when I was in my 20s or so, I was more attuned to things like that. But since then, I'm not as. Maybe it was the marijuana. No. That I just remembered another story. I actually did some LSD one time, and it wasn't a very good LSD trip. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't very good. And we were walking down the street, and we went into a church, and we sat in the pew, and I started crying, and I couldn't stop. And as soon as I left, I felt a lot better. And then I didn't realize it until my husband's parents set up his funeral. And it was at the same church.
Do you recall what year it was that you had the LSD trip?
It was probably 1969, maybe 1970. It was about a year after. It was about a year or so after he died.
Oh, wow. And so then when the funeral was there a year or so later, you felt like maybe you being uncontrollably weeping.
Well, it was due to the fact that I had connected to that future event on my trip.
When you came out of your coma, did it seem like this sort of life review that had flashed through your head? Was it a dream, or did it feel different than a dream?
It felt real.
Since it did feel real, does it feel like you sort of actually did see your mom and your brother and your sister?
Yeah, I do. But when I came out of the coma, all of a sudden I had this need to have all of those people around me So I had Tad go and get all the pictures that we had of my sister and my brother and my husband and my mother and whatever we could find, and then all of my friends, got pictures of all my friends and stuck them up on the wall all around the place. I had this need to see all of them again.
I've heard from a few other near-death experiences that part of the sensation they had is that the only thing we can really take with us through the other side is the love that we've shared with other people while we're here.
Mm-hmm.
And do you feel like you maybe brought sort of an amplified sense of how important just loving relationships are in life?
Oh yeah, I've become more kind or kinder with this experience.
And why do you think that?
Because I saw that life is short, and that there were people that came out of the woodwork that I hadn't seen in a long time that I was sick. You know, they came to see me, or they sent cards, or, you know, and I was never really that close to them, but now I have more. I need to be closer to people.
Well, as you can see, the match has gone out, and that was the last match of the episode, so I hope you enjoyed that near-death experience from Ypsilanti, Michigan. If you really enjoyed it, please text a link of this episode to someone else who you think might enjoy it. That'll help this show spread and catch on so that we can make more episodes. Another thing you could do is leave a 5-star rating for this show. It just takes one click, and it really helps the show grow. And I hope to see you back here next week, because I have another match to light.